Hello, brothers and sisters. Hello, brothers and sisters. Welcome to our show. Hello.
Yes,
You,
sir.
you can close.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to our show this evening. Prince Ojong and Larry Ayong.
We are here today and we're happy to present you a new show. There's a whole lot of news breaking out today, and we're happy to present this news to you. For starters, we're here in Ambazonia. The struggle has been going on for how many years now? Like
7
since
years.
2018. It's over 8 years.
Yes.
Over 8 years, and this is almost the ninth year.
Yes.
So a lot of people guys were saying Northwest, Southwest, they are like two cubes of sugar. They're going to dissolve them in no time. B is going to go there. But for over 8 years, B has not been able to subdue the people of Ambazonia, isn't it?
Yes. Basically, Prince, I want to go back to the origins of the philosophy of self-determination of Ambazonia, which is grounded in the Universal Declaration of Human Rights of 1948. The people of Ambazonia have a right to be a separate territory. Now, the United Nations in Article 18, Resolution 1805 gave them that opportunity, but the British, in their perfidy, decided to substantively and procedurally buck this opportunity by making independence through joining, which was unconscionable. And now Southern Cameroonians are free, they are educated. Their leaders in 1995 came here to the United Nations to table their issue. And because the world did not care, the United Nations has been a failure. It's just been a conglomeration of the five superpowers, the former colonial masters, Britain and France, who have their say, and America allows them to have their way. Now, the Ambazonians are taking guns. And guess what? That is what you do when you believe in something. That is what the Israelis are doing. That is what the Palestinians are doing. That is what Russia has done in the Donbass and the Donetsk area of Ukraine, which is Russian, and that is what the United States is doing. So the whole principle of if the great problems of the day cannot be solved by parliamentary speeches and debates, they'll be solved by blood and iron is still current.
Bismarck.
Yes. And Prince, just to add, General Nambere, one of the Anglophone leaders, said something I found very pertinent. When Anglophone leaders insist on having splinter groups, it is because they are fulfilling the contract that they had made with the La République du Cameroon to sell the movement. And the best way to sell the movement is to disrupt it, to reduce the possibility for there to be unity so that the splinter groups don't work. But thank God, our younger generation on the ground are not failing us. They're teaching the dictatorship of Cameroon a lesson, particularly because in Yaoundé now, Yaoundé is in disarray. Chantal Biya, Ngongo, Amugu Belinga, that whole cohort of the Biya crime family is falling apart. So Ambazonia has a great opportunity. Gentlemen on the ground, my boys on the ground, una hold and strong. With the give una support.
Okay, we hear that this week Paul Biya has summoned a meeting, and the purpose of this meeting is to discuss the Ambazonia issue. What do you think may be going on?
Okay, Paul Biya has failed. He has no solutions. He is dishonest. His regime has ended 42 years of, in fact, something really serious has happened to Cameroon at a spiritual level. This is a regime that drinks human blood, and they admit it. So these people, they don't care about killing people. They don't care about how many people have died. Look at how many people have died. But guess what? The blood of our mothers and fathers, the blood of our children cannot go in vain. It is that blood that is going to win. So, and you know, Prince, the inferiority complex that Southern Cameroonians have for somebody like a Tanganji without any education, a man who stole his brother's papers, can't speak good English, he's there. And Dion Gute is disgracing himself. He's being ordered around by Ngongo. So Anglophones have no place in French Cameroon. The earlier we go back to our British parliamentary system where there was separation of powers, there was accountability, the better for our people. La République du Cameroon has no plan for us.
Okay. So when we look at this struggle, okay, since it started, so let's try to just review the struggle a little bit. Just do like a timeline.
Okay. Prince, it is very critical when the international media, the corporate media that is beholden to the superpowers is talking about the Southern Cameroonian struggle and talking about separatists. They forget that this organization, the Southern Cameroons movement, was created by lawyers. And their initial motto was the force of argument, not the argument of force. They hoped with the British parliamentary form of government where there was dialogue, the possibility for people to disagree without being disagreeable. We thought that our so-called brothers in French Cameroon were going to sit down with us for us to have a discussion. Pamuna tried, Mukong tried, Foncha tried, they gave up. So our children are going to get this for us. Just like Southern Sudan got it with the gun, we are going to get it with the gun. There's no other choice.
Okay.
The government of Cameroon is dishonest. Now, the Canadians fell into that trap because they thought that Dion Gute, being a prime minister, had the same powers like Justin Trudeau. The Swiss are complicit because the black box, the money from Cameroon's oil, is kept in Swiss banks where Paul Biya spends it at L'Hôtel Continental there. So they are complicit. So when I heard Ambazonian leaders running to Switzerland, the Swiss plan, I knew it was a fraud. But
you're blaming Biya alone. Biya is not the only thief. You remember you shared a list with me with all the thieves' bank accounts in Switzerland. What a big long list.
Yes.
Call some of the names.
Well, Prince Ojong, you know that for 20 years, Prince Paul Biya has had some ministers in jail. Now, do you know why they can't bring them to trial?
No. Why?
Because these people steal the money and give it to Chantal, give it to Ngongo, give it to Paul Biya himself. So for there to be a free and fair trial, there will be testimonials, there will be the possibility for ocular witnesses to come and expose where this money went, and the regime will crumble. So that is why people like Mebengo, people like all the ministers who are there, people like Atangana Mebara, Ngongo, Mebengo, Awono, many of those ministers who are in jail, who stole money, people like people like they have all those names. I've forgotten some of their names.
Is one.
Yeah, but there is like Ondondong, who was the director of FACOM. This is like a private corporation that took care of councils. She was taking money from that and giving to Chantal when Chantal decided to live in Europe. That's why she's in jail. So these people are an occult group that has failed. No infrastructure in the country, no jobs. So most of the people in the Southern Cameroons who go around even claiming that they are Amber boys, they are young men who have no employment. And as Prince, when we're in primary school, they said, an idle man is the devil's workshop.
Yep.
So these people take up guns. And it's happened in many other conflicts. You remember the Boko Haram in the Sambisi forest.
Yep.
Boko Haram people were caught and they asked them to recite a surah of the Quran. And the guy said, no, I cannot read. I'm not even a Muslim. So, but why are you in Boko Haram? Oh, I'm in Boko Haram because when you're in Boko Haram, you can get a gun and then you can get women and you can extort money. So this is the job of the young men who are not dying in the Sahara or in the island of Lampedusa, who are not dying in the Darien Pass. They remain back in the country and get guns and start attacking people. And the beautiful moniker to use is that I'm an Amber boy. I'm an Amber boy. So I'm going to take money from you. This is just a common thief.
And Atama uses the same playbook.
Because the government of Cameroon has failed in 42 years to provide employment for a whole generation of young men. They leave the university, they have to drive motorcycles for a living. They have nowhere to sleep. You need to see them sleeping on their motorcycles in Douala. It's a scandal.
Yeah, and they have so many universities. During our time, like in 82, you had just one university. Biya came, he created many universities, but he did not know that he needed to create jobs.
Well,
And that's the tragedy of this country.
yes, Prince, I believe that really it's at a continental level, the failure of the nation states, the borders. Prince, last week I drove 1,400 miles from Maryland through Virginia, through Tennessee, through Arkansas, no, through
Georgia,
through Georgia, through Tennessee, to Louisiana,
Alabama,
and finally to Houston. I drove 1,400 miles. No police officer stopped me on the way. You had a highway, you could drive freely, you had nobody stopping you. The borders inherited from colonialism are the problem of the African continent. And until we put out those borders, I'm so happy the French are now being kicked out from Senegal. They're being kicked out from Chad. So we will now, I mean, there's open source technology everywhere.
There are more places where they're going to be kicked out. They're going to be kicked out in Togo.
Yes.
They're going to be kicked out in Cameroon.
And they should be kicked out in Djibouti too.
Yes. There are a lot more places where they're going to be kicked out because the young people are rising. So let's look at, before we leave the Ambazonia and move to other issues. So let's try to look at using SWOT analysis. Let's look at like the strengths of the Ambazonian struggle. What do you think will be the strength?
The strengths of the Ambazonian struggle is the resolve of the young men, the resilience of the young men, the justice of their cause. Southern Cameroonians have understood that we deserve independence. We have a territory that is larger than more than 15 other African countries. We have access to the sea. We have international borders. We have a political culture that is superior to that of the French, and we have great resources. The corrupt forests, that is one of the greatest forests in Africa with the greatest amount of geodiversity, with all kinds of exotic fruits and plants. We have the Menchum Falls that can provide hydroelectricity for the whole of West Africa. So we really don't need to be part of French Cameroon. The French have brought an imperial system of dictatorship where the president rules by presidential decree, and so that has destroyed the country. We can't be with them.
Yes, and young Africans have rejected this Francophone.
Yeah.
You know, Ojula and Charles de Gaulle. They have rejected it. In Senegal, the young guys too have rejected it. They just had parliamentary elections in Senegal.
Yes.
And Ousmane Sanko and this Youmayi Faye won.
Yes.
Handsomely.
Yes. So they have now been able to have the mandate of the people and have made their resolve in front of Macron that we are of age. We do not need French military bases. We don't need French military cooperation. We are going to cooperate with whoever we like. Africa is not going to be under the throes of Western imperialism with all these Western countries having military bases to control our leaders. We are going to take over the leadership from this corrupt generation. Prince, the most dramatic thing that has happened in Africa this year, it's so funny that African leaders, the 54 leaders went to China, Africa summit, China, the Italy summit, China, Turkey summit. These people are being herded like cattle to go to countries to go collect $1 million or $1 million. It's just a joke.
Yeah, that's a joke.
Africa cannot provide for its own sustenance.
You look at what is happening in Chad today. Mahatma Debi was installed by Macron.
Yes.
So what happened?
Because they now realize that for them to assert their sovereignty, for them to be different, for them to be, you see, the real
Why do they want to be different? They were installed by Emmanuel Macron. Why do they want to be different?
Because they are getting more and more educated. They are getting more and more emancipated. They are realizing that the French were putting them there only to continue the exploitation of the continent. So they are now trying to diversify. Remember, Prince, countries do not have permanent friends. They have permanent interests. So now the Russians are there. They are taking advantage of the Russians. The Wagner group is there.
And you can see now that Emmanuel Macron is looking for friends in all the wrong places. Can you believe that Macron this week invited Bola Tinubu of Nigeria for a state summit? Nigeria is an Anglophone country.
Yes, he worked.
Then the same thing with Ghana. Yeah, I know he worked in Nigeria.
He worked in Nigerian
So
embassy. Yes, the French are
looking for new friends, huh?
No, they are at the crossroads in Africa in terms of their diplomacy. The reverence that the Africans of the 1960 generation had for de Gaulle has dwindled. They don't really respect Macron. By the way, by African standards, Macron doesn't even have a family. So they look at him, he's a lightweight.
They look at him like a baby, right?
Yes, they look at in front of Africans, he has no family.
Even Felix Tshisekedi attacked him on stage and was telling him that you're a liar.
Yeah, but this generation is the generation that will not take nonsense from the West. And we in America, Prince, after 30 years in America, we are not going to listen to CNN or to Fox News. I am going to quote James Baldwin, who said in the Notes Native Son, he said, "I love America more than any other country in the world. And it's exactly for this reason that I insist on the right to criticize her in perpetuity." We are going to be criticizing America. We're going to be criticizing American policies. We're going to be criticizing American hegemony. We are going to be criticizing the American dictator who said he's going to be a dictator by day one. I have fought against a dictator for 40 years in Cameroon. I am not afraid of a dictator in America. And I urge you, Southern Cameroonians, Africans, stand up, speak out. This is your country.
Okay, so then the weakness of the Ambazonian struggle.
The weakness of the Ambazonian struggle is the sprintering, the tribalization, where every tribal group or ethnic group has its own leader who is being manipulated, where the government of Cameroon has pumped in so much money because of the hunger of leadership, people who want leadership for their own ego, hubris. I told you the 4 horsemen of the Southern Cameroon leadership apocalypse: self-serving leaders, self-dealing leaders, self-aggrandizing leaders, and self-exhibiting leaders. Leaders who want to be seen. Leaders who do not want to leave power. They are.
And what are some of their names?
Well, we know Sako, we know Chris Anu, we know everybody. Everybody has a group. And Nambere, who has fought on the ground, actually gave them a message. If you are not working for La République du Cameroon, step down and work for unity. I am one of the first leaders of the Southern Cameroons who served my 2-year term in the United States and stepped down and conducted elections. We need to learn democratic principles so that our movement can go ahead. If Southern Cameroons is going to be a dictatorship, then there's no use for us to have a Southern Cameroons. We can just stay in the Yaoundé dictatorship. Okay. But the kind of Southern Cameroon that we want, the British parliamentary form of government that we had, with Endele stepping down and handing over to Foncha stepping down and handing over to Jua, that kind of system, we are going to impose it, and we are not going to allow the black leg leaders to destroy this movement.
Okay. Then what are the opportunities?
The opportunities for the Southern Cameroonians are there now.
You had a lot of resources.
In terms of the fact that, apart from the resources that we have, the human and material resources, the world is changing. We are now realizing that people did not even know. When I went to school, Prince, I did not even know that when Cameroon gained independence, Southern Cameroons were not part of Cameroon. We are now acquiring more knowledge. It's like in the Paris clubs before the French Revolution. People were speaking freely. They were now exploring many possibilities. And we are no more afraid of Western leaders because we have seen that they are hypocrites who are only trying to exploit us. So we are going to be charting our own course. And we believe in the younger generation, our young men who are in their 20s and their 30s, that have passed through the Darien Pass, that have passed through the Sahara Desert, that have gone to Europe on their feet. They can make it. They are emboldened. They are in AI. They are in quantum computers. So there's open source technology all over the world, and they can acquire this technology to improve the lot of Southern Cameroons and turn it into a Dubai or a Singapore in less than 10 years.
What about the threats?
The threats we have always been the bellicose army of La République, the French tendency to continue to invest in military hardware, Western countries giving military hardware to the dictatorship in Cameroon, the Biya crime family, on the claim that they're fighting Boko Haram and rebel groups, and they use this armaments on Southern Cameroonian populations with impunity and commit genocide, and the Western countries are not recognizing the fact that this is an ongoing genocide. The pictures are all over the world, but this is like a forgotten movement. And that has been a bane on our Southern Cameroon movement. So this is one of the opportunities that we must exploit to internationalize this crisis. Prince, in the Spanish Civil War, people like Eric Blair, George Orwell, they made it a cause célèbre for the whole world. People, rebels, people who believe in freedom, people went there to fight. That is what we have to do. We have to have a foreign legion of Southern Cameroonians from all over the world who cannot stand the injustice of the dictatorship of Cameroon and who are ready to come and help us fight for our own freedom.
So you look at the African youth is really rising. When I see a lot of the anti-French feeling, anti-colonial feeling, it looks like the youth have come of age.
Yes.
They really think that this is time for change.
And I believe that they should go a step further to recognize that even the nation states themselves are a perpetuation of the colonial system. That if we free ourselves, where you can ride from the Canadian border right to Houston, where you can the commerce clause, you can carry your oranges from California and get to Maine, carry your fish from Maine and get to California.
Use the African context from the top of Africa, North Africa to South Africa.
Yeah, you from Cape to Cairo, from Dakar to Mombasa, with magnetic levitation trains to build the strongest economy in the world with research and development, posited on our single currency, the Afro. We must have our own currency so we don't become indebted. Can you imagine, Prince? Nigeria, a resource-rich country, is spending 97% of its export earnings to pay the debt or to pay the interest on their debt. So there's no way they're going to ever pay that debt. They're just paying the interest. This is unconscionable. We must change the system. And the problem, as Basil Davidson has said it, as René Dumont said it, l'Afrique Noire est mal partie.
They said it many years ago.
60 years ago.
What has happened up to now?
Yeah, but now we're coming of age. As Martin Luther King says, the arc of the world turns slowly, but it turns towards justice. In Africa, we are going to stop the dictators like Paul Kagame, like Paul Biya, like Obiang Bazogo, like Yoweri Museveni, all these leaders who are there to siphon the resources and give them to Western countries. We are going to, the younger generation is going to get them out. I believe very strongly.
You look at the AU, the African Union.
The African Union is a disgrace to the continent. They can't even build their own headquarters in Addis Ababa. The Chinese had to build a headquarters for them. The African,
and what happened after they built it for them?
It was bogged by the Chinese, and all the discussions that they have are being reported in Beijing. And so clearly we are like an empty shell. The African Union is an empty shell of dictators who go there to congratulate themselves every year that they have succeeded. Look at the Sudan War. The Sudan War has been raging for more than 2 years. More than 6 million people have been displaced. The African Union cannot do a thing. The African Development Bank, which is in Ivory Coast, most of the shareholders of the bank are Western countries. So what can they really do for us? Africa has nothing. What we need...
But Africa has a lot of resources.
Yes.
But they are not maximizing and leveraging these resources the way they should.
Yeah, Prince, I'm tired of we claiming the resources that we have. We have them. How are we leveraging them to improve our lot?
That's our problem.
That is what we have to be discussing. And we cannot wait for the 54 head of states who are moving around to China and to Turkey for African summits to be claiming money. We count on our younger generation, the intellectuals, the young men who are in schools all over the world. We count on them for research and development to create value-added goods for the continent and to create our own currency. We have to come of age. We cannot have separate sovereignty of 54 countries. They are going to be manipulated by the West. We have to have a continental nation, a federation of African nations, of the 2,000 nations of Africa.
So look at what is happening now in the Sahel. They are kicking France out. It looks like they are trying to form some kind of federation. What do you think about what is happening now in the Sahel?
It is a good step. It's a step in the right direction, because when you get humiliated as we Africans have been humiliated with 400 years of slavery, then colonialism, we are now going back to our roots. Prince, I did not even know that King Abubakar II of Mali crossed the Atlantic Ocean in the 13th century and built cities in Mexico. Greek,
wow.
Greek and and Roman civilization, which is supposed to be the foundational civilization of the West, is a derivative of African civilization. Universities like Timbuktu, universities like Alexandria in Egypt. This is where the knowledge of mathematics, astrology came from. So we are going to take back Prince Ojong, the king of Benin in Nigeria. Was exchanging correspondences with the king of Amsterdam. And the ambassador of Amsterdam in Benin said the streets of Benin were wider than those of Rotterdam in the 14th century. So we have to go back to our past glory and abolish the nation state, which is an appendage of imperialism, and go back to the continental, to the ethnic nations, and devolve power to them and open our borders so we can create the infrastructure. Now, we cannot do it with the dollar. We cannot do it with the BRICS. We have to do it with our own currency, the Afro.
So practically, how can this be done?
Okay.
Practically.
Prince, I am not Albert Einstein, but I know that Africa has so many Albert Einsteins. By the way, it took him 10 years to develop the theory of relativity. Now, AI develops the same theory in 10 seconds.
Wow.
So our boys have the capacity. Are we all right? Yes. So there are no dreams too lofty to dream. There are no ambitions too high to achieve.
It's just like John F. Kennedy was saying, we need to take a man to the moon in the next few years. And
in 10 years
he made that challenge, and Americans took the challenge.
Yeah.
So the young people of Africa who are giving you this challenge, it is up to you now to transform Africa and kick out all these dictators.
You have the wisdom, the inner knowledge, but we unwittingly sell ourselves short by adopting self-limiting behavior that can only create a limited life. Now there is AI, there's quantum computing. We can design our own products. We can design value-added products. We can develop our own currency. Nobody should tell us that we cannot develop a currency that is as strong as the dollar. We can, because we have the resources. And our currency will not be a fiat currency like the dollar. It will be based on gold and more than 20 strategic resources that we have in Africa. That is the way Africa is going to be the crucible of innovation. That is the superpower of the 22nd century.
And it looks like America too is part of the bad guys. Even though somebody once told me, America does a lot of good things. The good is interred with their bones. But the evil, that's what lives after, and people talk about the evil. Like in the case of Patrice Lumumba, the America killed Lumumba. You know, you wrote a lot about that in your book.
Yeah.
Can you share that?
Yeah, Prince. Well, I am a child of the Peace Corps volunteers who taught us in college. America had some good things that it did for us, but I am not going to throw away the baby with the bathwater. America did some very bad things, like when Dwight Eisenhower decided to kill Patrice Lumumba in 1961 because of our uranium. Till today, there has not been a commission of inquiry on the death of the Secretary General of the United Nations, Dag Hammarskjöld, who died in Dola because of the uranium in the Congo. The Congo, the United States has sustained a genocide in the Congo for 60 years. America must be accountable for that, because
CIA.
But when Hitler killed the Jews, 6 million Jews, he said never again. But we have stood by. Clinton stood by when the Hutus and the Tutsis were slaughtering each other. And this distinction of the Hutus and the Tutsis was created by Western Christianity. So all the ills of Africa have been exacerbated by Western imperialism. But the time has now come for us to gain our consciousness. That's why even Trump, who is talking about denaturalization, we are saying we're not scared. We have built this country. Black people build the White House, they build the Congress. We have contributed to the building of the institutions of this country, and we are a net advantage for America. America is a great nation because of immigrants, and we have come here to stay, and nobody will intimidate us.
Know that Trump is going to be president again for 4 years. Before you know it, his time will be up.
Yes.
So he has a lot on his plate. Before he knows it, he will not even have enough time to execute any of those plans.
Well, we usually say, be careful what you ask for. You may have it. Nobody is going to push anybody around. The fundamental principles enshrined in the First Amendment, Congress shall make no new laws to limit the freedom of the press, the freedom of religion, or the freedom of people to peaceably assemble to protest against the government. Those rights, we have gained them, we have acquired them, Americans have shown the ability to sustain them. January 6th failed because Americans fundamentally love freedom. We are not Russia, we are not China, we are the United States of America, and we are here to stay. And I'm talking to my immigrant brothers, you work hard, do not fear. This is your country.
What about this Elon Musk guy? I was reading a little bit about him. It looks like he came from South Africa. Yeah. And I hear he was even an illegitimate immigrant.
This is what is happening. It's a transition. Dictatorship, democracy plus autocracy ends up in plutocracy, a government of the rich by the rich for the rich. There is anticipatory capitulation of some of the rich people in America here, like Jeff Bezos and Zuckerberg, who are now scared of Trump because he's going to wreak retribution on them. But it's we, the journalists, like what Tom Paine did in the 17th century against the British Crown. It's we, the journalists, who have to stand and challenge this dictatorship. We cannot allow a dictator to thrive in America, and that's what we're going to do. So we are not scared. We are going to challenge him. We are going to hold his feet to the fire, and we are going to remind him of the fundamental freedoms that Americans have that nobody can take away from us because we fought for those freedoms.
Okay. So one of our viewers is saying, Mr. Larry, it's a real dreamer. An independent currency will never happen. What do you have to say about that?
I will refer him to when two semi-literate bicycle repairers in Denver, Ohio in 1903, Orville and Wilbur Wright, said they were going to fly a machine. And everybody in America was making a mockery of them. That, oh, the idea of flying a machine is against the laws of gravity.
Yep.
Today we fly. There is nothing fundamentally, there's nothing fundamental that impedes the ability of Africans to create a currency from the strategic resources of the continent, the gold that we have in the continent, the experience that we've had with the dollar. I told you how the dollar was created after the Civil War, when Parson Chase decided to tell President Lincoln that we are going to take over the currency, and on the full faith and credit of the United States, procurements are going to occur. And that is how they won the Civil War, because the South had all the resources, but they used their ingenuity. So when you say, every time you say something will never happen, turn around, it's already happening. I am so confident that it will happen in my lifetime.
And you look at what happened to FedEx. When the guy wanted to open FedEx, before that, he wrote a thesis talking about transporting luggage in airplanes. His professor told him that's the dumbest idea I've ever heard.
Oh, yes.
Who told you they can transport packages in planes? Planes can only carry people.
Prince, the guy who owned Kinko's had been declared unemployable by the federal government. He created a Fortune 500 company that has been bought now over. So I'm very confident. I had people in my family who told me that I will never go to school, but today I consider myself an intellectual. So
so people will always say never, it will never happen. Yeah, but the human mind is insurmountable. They can always do big things.
Yes.
So don't limit yourself. And that's the purpose of this show. We're here to encourage you to follow your dreams. Your dreams are closer than you think. Don't listen to the naysayers. They are dream busters. So dream big, think big.
Yeah, Prince. Let me remind our listeners of the 1953 Scottish Himalaya expedition, the first expedition of Sir Hilary and Tiersen, who scaled the Mount Everest. And he said, immediately you are committed, then providence moves in. All kinds of material assistance that you did not anticipate, a whole stream of events will augur in your favor. There is boldness and magic in beginning. So we can do it.
And I tell them now, read Think and Grow Rich.
Yes.
Which was recommended
Napoleon
to me.
Hill.
Napoleon Hill. Think and Grow Rich. And you know about the super mind.
Yes.
How it happens, how he works things out so that big things can happen.
Prince.
So motto, go and read Think and Grow Rich.
Yes.
By Napoleon Hill.
Yeah. I am going to implore our African scientists to start thinking about the conception of the magnetic levitation trains. We are not going to build roads. We're just going to build trains that will be magnetic trains that will flow on a steel gangway and connect the whole continent. We are not going to repeat the errors of the West. We are not going to reinvent the wheel. We are just going to start with quantum computing, with AI, and we are going to achieve wonders for Africa. I know the future of Africa is bright.
Thank you very much, our dear friends. Thanks for watching.
Thank you.
And thanks
Next time,
again.
see you.
See you. Bye-bye.
Keep up the hope.
Bye-bye.